Hello, welcome to this video on transnational companies or TNCs. In this video, we're going to look at some of the reasons why companies become transnational companies and look at some of the advantages and limitations of being a TNC. So here are some TNCs on the right hand side, and we're going to start off with a definition of a transnational company. TNC is a business that operates substantial facilities, does business in more than one country, and does not consider any particular country its national home. So let's make sure we have this definition down. We're thinking about these sorts of companies on the right hand side. They have substantial facilities. They do business in more than one country. They don't consider any particular country their national home, although their headquarters will normally be catered in one particular country, the USA or Sweden or the UK. So here's some examples of TNCs. These are the sorts of businesses we're talking about. McDonald's, Panasonic, BP, Ford, Shell, Nike. Large companies that operate across many countries. So we'll move on in a second to talk about the advantages. What are the advantages of operating in lots of different countries? We'll just pause for a second on one example here, which is Amazon. And Amazon operate in many different countries, which we can see in the top left around the world. And we're going to just explain that people often talk about transnational companies, and one of the main reasons is in terms of tax arrangements. And here is a blueprint that has been released by someone about how Amazon structures itself. So Amazon itself is not one business. Here is the headquarters, the American company, Amazon, owned by Jeff Bezos. And what we can see is there's a number of different companies, subsidiary companies, that this business owns. And we've got one here called Amazon European Holdings. And if we go back down, that business owns this business, and this business eventually owns this business here. And this business here is based in Luxembourg. It's registered in Luxembourg, where they have quite a low rate of tax. And what Amazon then does is how it structures its European operations is we have a number of subsidiaries again. We have, for example, Spain Amazon, France Amazon, the UK Amazon, and Germany Amazon. So in the UK, in France, and Spain, the tax rates, the corporation tax rates are a lot higher than in Luxembourg. So what Amazon don't want to do is they don't want to declare profits in Spain or France or the UK, because they'll end up paying, 28%, 30%, 40%, a high rate of tax. So what they try and do is move the profit to another country where tax is lower, and in this example, Luxembourg. Now, how do we do that? How do we move the profits? Well, what happens is the Luxembourg company charges the UK company a cost for calling itself Amazon, for using the brand. And that cost means that Amazon Luxembourg charge the Amazon UK, and money flows from Amazon UK into Amazon Luxembourg. And that cost that's coming out of the UK means that the UK business ends up with very little profit, and the Luxembourg business ends up with a lot of profit. And it's that profit that is taxed at 40%, and then that money can then filter back up through the system towards the parent company in the US. So being a transnational company can be very beneficial in terms of things like tax arrangements. So what are the advantages of being a transnational company beyond that? Well, access potentially to cheap labor. So for example, a lot of companies might have products manufactured in Malaysia or Turkey or China and use one of their subsidiaries in that business to do that manufacturing because wages are cheaper. You can access a wider customer base. Why limit yourself to 10 million people in your own country when you could sell to 1 billion people around the world? We've talked about the tax burden. You can structure your business in such a way that you direct profits to countries with a low level of tax. There might be financial benefits, so we can maximize revenue or achieve our profit maximization level of output by expanding to become a transnational company. We can achieve increasing economies of scale, in fact, global economies of scale. If the larger we get, the lower the average cost of production. We can maybe control key supplies important for companies like oil companies. If I'm an oil company based in the UK, I want to make sure I have perhaps a subsidiary in the Middle East that owns some assets there so I can control those supplies. I'm of a sufficient scale that I have the resource to be able to invest in research and development, R&D, or innovation in new, better technology and products. And it's diversification. If I'm spread around the world, if there's a recession in Europe, then that might be offset by a boom in Asia. If there's a recession in South America, then if my North American business is doing very well, it will balance out. So I can diversify. It's less risky potentially for me to be a transnational company. On the flip side, there might be some limitations or some drawbacks of being a transnational company. One of them is you might be exposed to political risk. So there are stories of businesses' assets being seized by governments, being nationalized in certain countries. And for that business, you've lost that asset. It's a complete disaster and it's a big loss. Also, they might introduce rules or regulations or laws that are a risk to your business. So there's a potential of political risk if you're in many different countries. There might be logistical issues, coordinating movements of products from China to be manufactured in Africa and then redistributed to consumers in Australia. That might be difficult to coordinate. As a result, we might get diseconomies of scale, which we've touched on in an earlier series. It might cost a lot of money. Can we finance the expansion? Is it risky to borrow money? Can we pay it back? There might be authorities that have issues over a large business entering their particular market and what that will mean for local companies. Will they be able to compete with a large transnational? There might be ethical concerns. We might expand our business to access cheaper labor in maybe a Far East market, but do we know how the workers are being treated? Do we know if it's environmentally sound practices that are being used? And maybe we won't have as much control, and that might damage our reputation. So there's ethical concerns. And then as a result, reputational damage. So in this video, we've looked at some of the reasons why transnational companies become TNCs and some of the advantages and drawbacks of being a TNC. That's it. Thank you very much for listening.